second dispensation of humanity on Earth. Earth has a history that goes longer than that. Humans weren't her first primary form of life. Of course, as we well know from the fossilized evidence we find. Now we're talking in terms of human history when we came to assume the role here and take our place as the children of the light and stretch our love as thin as possible and see how far it could go, because we knew it would never break. It's a brave journey, really, when you look at it on a spiritual level. Going from the second into the third dispensation was living hell for most of us. We went from being powerful beings to being small and lonely beings. We started to feel what loneliness was, how it felt not to be so attached to life any longer. Life had somehow removed itself one from another. There was communication amongst the plants and trees in the forest. There's communication amongst the animals. But the what we would call subliminal communication now that humanity had enjoyed for so many eons was gone. There was just a shadow of it left. There was some nonverbal communication, but verbality became our mode then. That's how long it's been around. It's quite the change. Also, this was when night and day and life and death began. You know, when there was a separation. Remember the two-headed woman? Well, there was the fair side to it and there was a not-so-fair side to it. The more argumentative one. And that's where we went. In a metaphorical sense, was into that darkness. It was another step down into the darkness. We allowed, in spiritual terms, this invasion to occur. And we, in fact, numbly at first, didn't feel a thing. But we, in fact, inhabited the souls of our invaders inside of our person, our body, as well as that essence that is ourself, the person that we are in the substance of creation. So that took a whole lot of getting used to, because it changed all of our behaviors and mannerisms. Like I said, loneliness came into view. Sexuality began in a minor way then. Before that, the communication between male and female had been on another level, in another way. It was like your bodies merged and became one body again, and you could remember the beginning of time and experience the joy of that. That's how the unions were in the second dispensation. Now in the third, there was a great division created between us, a sense of separation. We couldn't feel the mother's heart inside of us anymore, not in the way we used to. Like I said, there were remnants. We had to carry that with us or we all just would have croaked. I mean, there wouldn't have been no point. The experiment over, done. So we carried that into that third dispensation with us. And you know, in time, we relearned how to communicate. This is probably the origin of languages and national and tribal cultures in our world, because, you know, where before we had been all kind of tall and fair-skinned, I mean, not, we were more bronze color than pale, but fair-skinned and just gorgeous, but very light, not much density to us at all. And we'd come from that stage to something not quite as dense as we are now. This is about as dense as we get right here, right now, in the human form of 2012. Holy shit. It's a heavy old thing, you know, and I'm a light booger. I can't imagine how those with a little more bulk feel. Oh my goodness. It's difficult to move this stuff around. Well, sometimes. Oh, geez. But in time we learn to communicate. You know, nations arose of people of similar characteristics, you know, and for whatever the reason, when we left our beautiful city in the mountains and flew off from there to start over, people of similar characteristics, people that woke up different and were brown, all the brown folks got together, you know, and so on and so forth. So there was like about 7 or 8 or maybe even 12, I don't remember, but different tribal natures that came out of that massive chaos. And they all assimilated together and flew off to the far ends of the earth to begin again. So because there was differences now in our characteristics, huge differences, you know, because we went to different parts of the earth to begin again, because that was the only sensible thing to do. Well, we developed mannerisms and behaviors that were characteristic to the land that we were growing on. So there were differences between us and the people living over across that way and over across that way, you know. And so there were some conflicts, and this thing called warfare started to take hold amongst the people. That's pretty early on in human history, but it's what ultimately led to the end of the third dispensation, the Atlantean period. There was a huge war, and everything was destroyed. Everything. Pretty much, anyway. But of course, there's a remnant that comes away from that. And because this had been what we would now call a nuclear war, these were more than thermonuclear. These were planet busters. We were lucky to have a planet left after all of that. And in that third dispensation, yeah, we still had communication with our star family, but it was far more limited. The veil had thickened, and, you know, you had to have vehicles to get through it and so forth. You know, it became a whole different paradigm than the personal, face-to-face, one-on-one stuff we'd had before. There may have been a gateway or two survived, but they weren't in common use. They were hidden away from the people. The invaders made sure of that and used them for their own purposes and not for anybody else's. You got to understand, these invaders, this is where our legends of Luciferian and satanic energies come from, was these invaders, you know, because they're pretty dark souls. Like I said, they considered themselves anti-life. Well, in fact, the sweet human beings of Earth were a baited trap designed to do just that. Get these people, oh, I had a few words on my tongue there, get these beings to come here and invade the earth and occupy us so that we could reformate them, bring them back to life. And that's going to take a hell of a lot of doing. And like I said, it was going to stretch our love to its thinnest point. And these wars of that third dispensation nearly took us away. So with the remnant, it was decided far harsher means were necessary. Oh, God. I mean, there's so many machinations, so many different levels, so many different ways humanity has been moved. I'm just talking in some very general terms, very general stories. There's reasons why there's fossils of Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal and so forth. You know, and we'll get into those sometime too, but for now we're just sticking with a base story. But we've been through many different varieties of life, especially since that invasion in the third dispensation. You know, we went through a lot in those times. It tried our emotionality to its utmost. It stretched our desire to live to its thinnest point. It stretched our love almost as thin as it is now, but not quite. You notice the callous nature of humanity. You know, how nothing really seems to matter. Intimate, close, sacred, personal things are treated like blowing your nose, something like that. You know, it's stretched pretty thin these days in the mass of humanity, and thank God there are those that are waking up that have held that love and hold these things sacred and keep them in their heart to be sacred even as they play the ways of the earth. You see what I mean? These are survivors that have been through many different lives. They're a particular tribe that's been through all these dispensations. And these are the healers of humanity, the bringers of the dawn and keepers of the light, keepers of the dream, and called by many other different things. But that's primarily who's watching this video, people of that tribe. We always come to earth asleep again, and we have to find ourselves first and then find each other after that, and then get to rocking and rolling. But of course, that same crew is always on the job even when they don't know it. So they're active at a subdural level, what we would call a subconscious level, but there is a consciousness to it, even before the time of the regathering of their own self, and then of the self of the family, of the heart, the keepers of the dream, as I love to call them, but you can call them by any old term you want. But these are the harbingers of the human heart, the place, the brotherhood of that heart, that have held it together for the mass of humanity, and kept it in themselves throughout all these dispensations and lifetimes, many of them, and brought it to this point where now it can be reassembled in the fullness of consciousness, and we can re-inhabit our beginning moments on this earth and change the entirety of this paradigm and live in paradise forevermore. It's as simple as that. And that's what's happening now, right now, middle of October in 2012. It's ongoing. In the next few days and next few weeks, there are going to be many changes in the way we live, precipitated by some stunning revelations that take the facade, rip the mask right off the face of the invader's illusion, and bring forward the most noble parts of humanity, bringers of the peace, fulfillment of the hope of the heart. You've known these people in many different ways through all these dispensations. They're always here with you because they never let go. Because they were the ones that began it in the first place. Sweet beings that they are, presences. And even now, as I sit here rapping with you through this electronic means, I feel the heart of that family, that tribe, arising. And know that it won't be long before you see him in action again. The deck seems stacked against us right now, but it's not. There's a lot of love in this world. A lot. And it might have grown quiet for a while, but it hasn't gone anywhere. And yeah, we may be slaves, but we're free. We're not trapped in the economy. Don't need to be. There's a way to end this peacefully. Without your so-called Armageddon. That happened quite some time ago and nobody even recognized it. It's how life works sometimes, baby. Surprise! There's Gomer Pyle every time. Dang, where'd that guy come from? People, I'm telling you, time is short. And it's about time that it got to be short. You know, if you're like me, you've had enough. You know, time to change. Time to ring some new bells, and prime some new chimes, baby. And get on with the best of times. Rock and roll. So we'll talk just a little bit about this in this next chapter, and I'll catch you in a little bit. Grandpa Coyote, Crestone, Colorado, United States of America. Home of the flea and land of the slave. Don't know whatever happened to those that were called brave. They've gone away. They don't play in these fields today. Or do they? Wow. Maybe they're back.